It's 9 o'clock, so let's call the November 28th meeting of the Cottington County Commissioners to order. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and today would Commissioner Hatton please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And wasn't yesterday just an absolutely gorgeous day? Man, they just could keep coming, can't they? Little housekeeping, if you do have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it. And if you do get a call that you need to take, please step out into the rotunda and take the call so you don't disturb who's ever speaking at that time. Also, this meeting is being streamed live, so if you wish to address the commission, more than likely you will be streamed as well, so just a heads up so that you know. That being said,
make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
by Hatton to approve the agenda and a second by, who was that over there?
Van Duzen.
Commissioner Van Duzen. Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. Minutes of the
Move to
21st
approve as
meeting.
emailed.
We have a motion by Hatton to approve, a second by
I'll second.
Commissioner Gable. Any discussion in reference to that? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 4 on the agenda is a discussion with Mr. Bruce Hested regarding definition of agriculture income requirements for property assessment. If you want to come on up, Bruce. I've also asked, I hope that's all right, Bruce, that we have Shauna Constant to join us. Shauna is our Director of Equalization. She may have, let's start this conversation by, Shauna, will you give us some parameters, what we use now? Well, come on up, will you come on up, Shauna?
Maybe he needs to,
All right.
explain what he's asking for before she can do
Well, I know what he's asking for, so.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Grandpa Gus Hested sat at these very desks back in the 1930s.
Yes, yep.
Probably the same desk, huh?
Okay, I'm here for,
okay.
for 3 issues. One is to review the Director of Equalization and what is meant by gross family farm income. Number 2 is about agri-hoods, things that are going on in the country today that I think we need to be aware of if we want Watertown to grow and we want people my age and younger to come back and participate in our community. And 3 is a transitional house that my friend Al Lawrence and I just want to speak to you briefly about, giving you a quick heads up what we're talking about. So first, on the Director of Equalization, criteria for classification of land as agriculture for tax purposes, there are 3 issues. Number 1 is, you have to meet 2 of the 3 as you're aware of. Number 1, 1/3 of total gross family income is derived from pursuit of agriculture. I say it is, that's my point that I want to visit with you about. Principal is used to devoted to agriculture, and it is. And it consists of not less than 35.01 acres, and it does. So it's less, it's 10, basically. So as far as the income goes, here's my feeling on that.
Bruce, you said something had changed.
Yes.
The egg criteria has changed. It's no longer 1/3 of your gross family income. It is 10% of the taxable value of the land as agriculture. But basically, now the criteria is first it has to be used for egg purposes, and then it has to either meet the income of the 10%, or it has to meet the acre requirements.
Okay.
How would we rewrite that here then?
Huh?
How would that be rewritten here? Are you taking out a third of the total gross family income derived from pursuit of agriculture?
Yes, but the Department of Revenue took it out. It's actually a new form, everything that's an older form.
Okay. So what are the criteria then to classify it as agriculture?
Yes, I have a new form if you want that, but basically you have, the first criteria is you have to use it for ag purposes.
Okay, which I
And
do.
then if it is used as ag purposes, then it has to, the income derived from the land to the landowner needs to be at least 10% of the taxable value valued as ag, or it has to meet the acre requirements.
So it doesn't meet the acre requirements,
Right.
but if I farm it and if I get 500 bales of hay at $5 a bale, I get $2,500 of income. And
Is
that,
it your piece of property?
no, it's rented property.
It needs to be the actual property owner's income.
Well, I can address that also.
What, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. What form are you talking about?
It's an application for ag status. It's an old
Okay.
one. He hasn't been in the office for a couple of years about this.
It's actually, when we do our assessments, we have ag land and non-ag land.
Okay. So now,
We're discussing a 10-acre piece not owned by him, owned by someone else. So that kind of throws, but it needs to be the property owner that needs the income off of it to qualify as ag right now,
And that income has to be 10% of what?
of the taxable value.
So what would the taxable value be?
I'm not sure because right now it's assessed as a small acreage and not ag. And so it's 10% of that ag value.
okay, so,
Do you guys know this?
I do now.
Okay. I will have to look into that.
Yes, the legislature changed the ag income guidelines this year, and they also changed the application last year, so it's been changed 2 years in a row.
That's why we wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, there is an IRS. I went to my accountant and talked about about qualifying this as farm, and they said we are able to get this operation on a tax return. We can show this as a hobby farm on Schedule F and only report losses to the extent of income.
Correct, but it's not your property. It has to be the property owner.
Okay, so if I solve that issue, would I qualify?
I would have to look at the 10% taxable income and look at your Schedule F. You would have to fill out the application after you acquire the property, and then we would go from there.
Is this, Mr. Chairman, is this website here, that top form where it says application for ag status, is that the form Mr. Hested needs to focus on?
Yep.
Okay, so if you go to that Department of Agriculture, this is the form I think the director's talking about.
what's the form number on that, Lee?
It
Form?
is
It's like PT 12.
PT 1292. Yeah.
PT
The
1292.
Department of Revenue's website.
Anyway, so it's that top link there, and it pops the form up too. So,
Have you got that, Bruce, that phone number? So you
it's-
can go on the website and get that form?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Can you take that and send it to the office and print that?
PT 1292.
suppose,
I mean, I don't know if you can or not.
yeah, I could.
How about if you manage farm acreage and don't own it, but the
property
person
owner,
lives in California and I manage it for him?
then they still go off the property owner's income.
So it'd be like leasing the farm. Still be like a lease.
They're still getting money off of it if
Right.
they're paying someone to manage it. Or they could have the income or the acre requirement. You could have 80 acres and use it for ag and that qualifies.
But I don't have 80, I have 5.
Right, but I'm just saying if you were managing something for someone, you're gonna manage more than 10 acres.
Not
But the whole
necessarily,
issue-
not necessarily. I can manage something that's
Well-
less than 10.
You can, but the whole issue is you don't own the property. The property, as soon as you do, come in, apply for the ag status, and we'll go from there. We'll look at your income we'll look at the income requirements and what you get. Otherwise, it's the property owner that has to come in and apply for that ag exemption.
So if the property owner comes in and applies for it, and I farm for that property owner,
It's the income that the actual property owner gets on it, not you, the property owner.
that I pay him.
Yes.
Well, I would pay him rent and hope to come out ahead by doing that. So, okay, I think that one puzzles me a bit, but
You'll have to study that a little bit more.
we might have to look at that one. That also segues into the other thing about coming back to South Dakota. Now, maybe this changes that also. If I want to move back to South Dakota and buy 5 acres and call it farming because I want to raise some chickens and I want to have a cow there and I want to have a garden.
And
I
some,
would not consider that a,
But IRS does.
I'm not the IRS.
I understand that.
I mean, this agricultural discount is for the agricultural community, not the little 5-acre hobby farms. My parents have that too.
And those guidelines are set by the South Dakota Department of Revenue is where
Yeah, it's
we
not a-
get those guidelines from.
Yeah, it's not a county thing.
Well, then maybe as a county we should look at it, because what I'm hearing is rich millennials are ditching the golf communities for their parents for a new kind of neighborhood, agrihoods. And agrihoods are growing up between Sioux Falls and Watertown going up to the North Dakota line. There are more 1+ acre farms coming along the way than obviously other farms. Large farms are getting larger, but people like myself who want to raise a few chickens and do that are starting to come in and buy land and farm it in communities along the interstate. Then they come into the towns, and in the town they create a primary income. Secondary income comes in from their garden. They take it out to
Farmers market.
farmer's market and market it there. So that maybe is a separate issue, because they can still come in and buy 5 acres.
And that's something that would have to be addressed through the planning and zoning, because right now we have the 35-acre rule. But
Right.
we are going through our ordinances, and there is a survey. If you go to Coddington.org under the zoning and look at that survey, and then get some of your input on that. And then also, if you get Luke your email information, when we are going through that portion, he will let you know so you can be in attendance and have your input at that time.
Okay.
and that'll probably, not probably, it will be this winter.
Yes, it will be. So that's when that could be addressed, I believe, would be at that level.
All right, well, this change and this equalization kind of threw me, because that's what I was going off of, and that's
Sure.
bad. I should have checked that out. I see this as the future, and I think you can support that. They talk about 3 types of farms: commercial farms, stewardship farms, farming it for the land, and then quality of life, our way of life farms. So those 3 farms.
And we have sort of looked at that as smaller acreages around the smaller towns in that sort of area, not just helter-skelter throughout the whole county, but there may be some areas that could be a possibility that we could maybe take,
Yeah.
I mean, investigate anyway, so.
And what was your third?
Just to come back to, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes.
to pick up on what Commissioner Hanton said. So Commissioner Hanton's talking about the land use and the planning and zoning part of it, but if you're talking about how the taxable value or the percentage of taxable value that gets taxed, that's a legislative thing at the state level pretty much. So you might want to have this conversation with a legislator or 2 or 3. So
You know,
just a bit, my suggestion.
the taxes is not a deal breaker for me. It's the concept of, is it farming or is it not farming? And if it's farming, why wouldn't that qualify as the taxable acreage when you're farming?
And that would go to the property owner then,
Yeah.
the way it's in statute right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And whether I manage that for him or rent it from him, if that land is being productive for farming, why wouldn't it qualify? That's my,
Yep. And it may for him, but he would have to be the one that would need to go through the process.
yeah, so he'd have to sit here instead of me.
Or just go to Shauna and do the application sort of process, yeah.
All right. Last one. My buddy Al Lawrence and I and one other person came up with the idea that we need to have a transitional house.
Come on up and
Come
have a
sit in the
chair,
chair.
Dr. Lawrence. You might introduce yourself so we know, so the rest, I know who you are, but the rest of the people know who you are.
Yeah, my name's Al Lawrence, so I'm his sidekick today. But anyway, what Bruce was talking about is for the past 6 months or so, we've been going into the detention center and having a small group with different inmates. And what we've come away with is that there's really no transition for them once they're released from the detention center. Other communities like Brookings and Sioux Falls have places where they transition, into society again. And in Watertown, a lot of times they're thrown back into the situations that they were before, where there's people that are still using drugs, still using alcohol, and they don't have the support services that are necessary for them to be successful and get back into society and not return to the detention center. Because we need to look at that, and that's what happens, is a lot of them just return to the detention center. So,
Commissioner Gable, would you please share with them what we are doing in reference to that?
Yeah, I think Mr. Hested's been to one of the meetings, so I think probably the biggest thing we're doing in this area, and this is exactly the thing that we noticed, and right now we're addressing it in a mental health issues as related to the jail. So it's called the Stepping Up Initiative, and Cottington County was one of the first that particularly that. But I'm glad you mentioned what you did, because yours and a lot of other faith-based groups are, pastors and whatnot they come into the jail, and they try to work with the inmates through a Bible study or whatever the thing might be. But the case management or whatever takes place afterwards is kind of the challenge. So if you guys want to be on the map, so to speak, we need to. One of the things we're doing right now is trying to get a good sense of who's all out there to help within the community. So that's why I appreciate you coming forward. But if you want to get in contact with me about the next, so you can come in and sit in on the Stepping Up meetings and make sure that we're aware of what you guys are doing, and also aware of what you might suggest, because that's one of the problems. We're kind of seeing that there are people that maybe shouldn't be in the jail, and then trying to get a hand on that. So we're taking some steps to get a good sense of any kind of mental health issues that might be going on. I mean, that's kind of how we have to look at it. And then turning around and saying, okay, if they shouldn't be in the jail, can we help the judge be aware of the situation with a particular individual, perhaps, and then the judge can make a determination, and then whether they're in the jail or they're not, and then it comes, what happens after that. So that's kind of the issue we're having to do. So we're trying to map through the community what we can do, what people get diverted to, or what people exit the jail to. So you're bringing up a very valid point. So
About a month ago, we had a forum, and there was a name for that forum, but we tried to bring in all the entities involved in just exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
And when you do that, you're always going to miss someone, and I'm sorry that we missed you.
I was aware of it.
That would have been a great place for you to bend and contributed at that point. That would have been very, very good. But it's good to hear that that's happening.
But there's, so like Access Ministries, Salvation Army, they were at that particular forum. But as we're trying to map it out, you want to see what faith-based groups are willing to help and willing to participate. So
I believe also, when we went to conference, this is something that Pennington County is trying to establish with people can come and go, and
Yep.
some are there for a week and some are there longer. It gives them a place to go and stay until they're ready to move on.
So let's cut to the chase. What are you gentlemen asking, or what are you proposing?
Well, we're going to build
Anything?
a transitional house,
Or you're going to build a transitional
or
house?
buy a transitional house.
Okay.
And our plan is to do that within the next year.
Okay?
This is an awareness of that. We're working on a booklet of facts and figures, which you guys know a lot better than we do. All we know is the guys we meet and we talk with, and we're learning through that curve. And
And what is your group called, so we can identify it when we hear it? Nothing?
followers of Jesus.
Followers
Bruce.
of what?
Jesus.
Oh, Powers of Jesus.
Fireworks.
Oh, okay.
It's
I can remember Alan
It's
Bruce.
Al and Bruce and Bart. There's three of us.
You know, we go in there, and they call us church, they call us Bible study. I think that's not what we're about. We're just a small group, and it's about living life and living life better, and how we can help these men and women get there. You know, Jesus is a powerful man. And some people say, "Oh, I don't believe that he was God." Well, you don't have to believe he was God, but you can know he was a man that walked this earth. And if we all followed his principles, whether you believe he was God or not, this world would be a much better place. And that's kind of what we're trying to impact them and keep them involved once they get out and aren't thrown back into that situation. So I guess today's was just kind of an informational thing. This is what we're trying to set up, getting input, where we do it, how we do it, guidelines that we should do it. You know, we found that there are multiple groups out there that have the same idea, but we're all just fragmented. You know, they want to do it here, they want to do it here, and we want to do it there. And, I mean, if we all came together, I think it would.
And that's the idea behind the
powerful
stepping up.
Yeah, I think so.
To bring those powers together.
I think the biggest hurdle everyone is finding is funding. And I believe that's where Pennington County is as well. You know, the funding part of it is
501(c) paperwork is already in, so we got
There you go.
Part of it is funding, but I tell you what, I think if the deal is right, we can get the funding together. And we would be here to ask you for funding also, sustainable funding. But to go out and buy a house and get it approved in a neighborhood, decide on who qualifies, who doesn't qualify, get the guys behind bars who know what's going on to help put this program together, that's what we're going to do. And we just wanted to give you the heads up and let you know that's what we're doing. And
Well,
we'll
thank
be
you.
back.
Appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, please get in contact with me, and we'll share you the information about the Stepping Up group, because that'll help you coordinate this effort, so if it turns into something that's usable, that we can use it. So please get in contact with me.
Thank you.
So,
I would suggest, yes, to communicate with Commissioner Gable. Gable is working with this group, and see if we can't go forward with it and support your efforts. We know that it needs to be done. That's for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to do it.
Thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you for coming in, and have a great week.
I'll be back.
Enjoy this weather. Is that a warning, Bruce?
Is that a warning, Bruce? This is agriculture. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's go on then to number 5, our monthly reports. Let's start right out with Mr. Sutton, Emergency Management. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Got a few things this morning. Begin with, I've been working with Prairie Lakes Hospital on evacuation plans that they're putting together there at the hospital. Just wanted to run this by you as part of the evacuation plan. You know, if need be, we would have to move patients to a temporary facility, you know, in case of a fire or whatever there at the hospital. They're looking at a couple of different locations, one of them being the Cottington County Extension Center, and what they're asking is if we could put together a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, saying that if there was an emergency situation such as that the county would be willing to work with Prairie Lakes Hospital, and emergency management would be willing to help opening the Extension Center where we could move people there. So if you don't have any problems with that, I'll work with State's Attorney's Office and Prairie Lakes. We'll put together an MOU for your review and for signing on that. You know, it would just be in an emergency situation where we may have to, you know, open up the Extension Center because at the Extension Center we do have supplies here, pandemic flu supplies. We have cots and so forth that we could set up if we needed to, so.
I certainly have no issue with it. How about the rest of the commissioners?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So would this ever, say if you had a larger scale natural disaster that wasn't just localized at the hospital, say where you had to deploy the pod, would that conflict with something like this, needing to put people from the hospital at the extension center, conflict with the
You know
the
what,
pod?
I don't see a conflict with like pod because it's two different things. You know, the only time we'd have a conflict is if we had to have the pod operating and then we'd have a large fire or something at the hospital. At the same time.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so, all right.
You know what, is it possible? It is, Lee, but is it likely? No.
Okay.
Okay.
And Jim, you're aware of this more than the rest of us here even. Out at the extension center, there's only one area there that is really storm-proof, or it's
That's correct.
an area. And so it wouldn't be for safety or for cover, it'd be just for facilitating.
Like a fire
place
or
for them to
something
be,
like
yeah.
that.
Right.
If they had to evacuate the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we had the fire at Sunchase.
Yes.
You know, and we had
Okay.
to move people someplace temporarily until they could be, you know, moved to another location. So that's what we're talking about, a temporary location until they could be moved on.
Is there any concern with that from anyone? I think we have a common consensus here.
Next thing I've got, we had our pod flu shot exercise out at the Extension Center on Thursday, October 26th. That went very well. We were well organized, giving out free shots to children up to age 18. But they worked very well, you know, and the Department of Health and the pod volunteers all worked together very well. It was quite an operation, to say.
If I could comment on that, Mr. Chairman, I popped in just to see what that looked like, because I'd done the training, the ICS courses, but I hadn't actually seen it. It was impressive to see all the people that were there from, well, you had all the city folks, the fire departments,
Right.
police, sheriff, you guys, you had people from the hospital, LATI
How many
students.
shots did you give? Do you have any idea?
All together, you know, we had some teams that went out to rural schools too, but we were in the neighborhood of about 800, you know,
Good.
countywide.
And it was, your office was very good about managing the access point. I mean, they badged me. I just walked in just to look, and it was pretty slick.
So what Commissioner Gable was talking about is that we have a rapid take system, and at the pod we use the rapid take system, and every volunteer that worked there had an identification card similar to, you know, something like this. And with that identification card, we can track who was there, and they check in and they check out.
Sherry actually produced cards as people were coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Good for me.
In case of a flood or any other natural disaster, we'll be using that rapid take system. So this gave us a chance to, you know, practice with it.
Sure.
And that way, you know, it'll be a lot easier for us to track volunteer hours in a natural disaster, and that those volunteer hours are used, you know, for our FEMA match for our expense.
And we do have that, we acquired that reader or whatever that.
From the state of South Dakota through State Emergency Management, right?
Yep.
Any other questions on that? Or?
Do we have any way of identifying who those people are so that we can identify them as volunteers for insurance purposes? You know, we normally have a list of volunteers.
I don't believe the pod falls under our
Okay.
No.
general liability,
All right.
no.
You know what I'm saying, where I'm
Yes.
going with that.
The only coverage we'd have for those volunteers, like for the pod exercise, would be, you know, our general liability. Like
In
we
our
have
building.
For
Sure.
the building.
Yeah,
if
the building
they
itself.
would slip and fall on the
Yeah.
sidewalk or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But they
Yes.
wouldn't be covered under workman's comp.
Okay. Okay.
Next thing, a couple of items, search and rescue team, we responded out to Long Lake for an individual and his dog that fell through the ice in Long Lake. And the individual was able to get himself out of the water and back onto the shore our search and rescue team members suited up with cold water submersion suits, and they were able to go out and rescue the dog also. So we helped with that call, and we have received a very nice thank you letter from that family for the assistance that the search and rescue team provided.
You also got some very good press, too.
Yeah.
It was a good article in the paper.
Yeah. And then Saturday night, search and rescue team responded for a call of assistance for law enforcement. They were looking for a driver that had run away from the scene of the stop, and with our drone with our thermal imaging camera on it, they were able to locate that individual. So that worked very well also. Moving on to another item, the trailer, for the generator project that we've got going, it has been ordered, and we're expecting to see that into Watertown around the third week in December. So we're moving forward to that. On December 9th and 10th, we have an ICS 400 class that will be held over at Fire Station number 1. And that will be again on December 9th and 10th. We had our ICS 300 class here approximately about 3 weeks ago, and we had 19 people, I believe, that attended that class. So that was we had a good turnout for that class. Tomorrow I'll be attending the City Department head meeting over at City Hall here in Watertown. So tomorrow morning I'll be at that meeting. On Friday, December 1st, my office with coordinating with LATI, where we have a hazmat class that we're putting on over at LATI. That's for law enforcement students. And then we have a number of the street department employees that will be attending that class also for hazmat safety training. On December 1st, also at 1st District, we're having a pre-disaster mitigation plan meeting. We're finalizing the update of the pre-disaster mitigation plan, so that'll be at 1st District. If you're interested in attending, that'll be at 1 o'clock there in their meeting room.
I have 1:30.
What day is that, Jim?
Friday, December 1st.
Okay.
Oh, it's 1:30.
1:30.
Excuse me, I had it out as 1 o'clock.
It's all right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
1:30 at 1st District. December 6th, I will be attending the Watertown Fire Department Advisory Committee meeting over at Fire Station number 1. And then the last thing that I had is we were talking about the rapid tag system, but also this is a state identification card, and it's my card. I'll pass around. You can take a look at it. But we've also been doing those cards for county employees, the auditor's office, and other county employees. The question I had for the commissioners is if the county commissioners would like to have a state identification card, we can do that for you. There's a little, just a informational form, information that we need to enter into the state system in order to produce those cards. But if you're interested in having one of those government identification cards, if you contact us at Emergency Management, we'll give you a copy of the form to fill out, and then Sherry can print out the card for you.
What would it be used for on our behalf?
Identification, the county employees to identify you as a county employee. If you go to appear for some reason and you're at a meeting, it identifies you as a government official.
Is that an official identification? Can that be used for like state issued type identification or
Couldn't
not?
be, it couldn't be used for voter registration,
Okay,
no.
okay.
I think it could be, if you had a natural disaster or something, it could be handy, so it would save some work.
Yes.
So rather, as opposed to
We go
giving us
out
a
and do a
temporary
lot of
thing.
absentee voting
Yeah.
at the nursing homes. That's one of the reasons we wanted this.
Sure.
So we have a photo ID.
I didn't mean to interrupt, Cindy.
No.
It doesn't do away with your driver's license, it doesn't take the place of, it kind of adds to.
No,
No, this saves these guys work ahead of time, so that they don't have to temporarily badge us if we want to go on a site.
I mean, it's
That's
got a
kinda-
reader on it, so you can read, scan it, and it.
I know that the police department was issued those a couple of years ago, Jim,
Right.
now, and it's a great idea if you want one. I think on the back, doesn't it have a listing of your training, ICS,
and
and
you can enter your training that you've had on that, and also, in times, if we would have a disaster, this is the ID card that would get you in and out of meetings and so forth. If you would not have one of these cards, you wouldn't be allowed into the EOC, as so.
all right.
The real question is, will it get you into Army surplus?
I don't know about that, Myron. We'd have to check.
Just, I had one when I was at Lake Erie. I had one of those.
Milo has something.
Milo,
Mr. Chairman, I would, Jim and I talked about this a little bit when we were at the Safety and Risk Conference, but I would suggest that you consider having all the county employees perhaps get this card and make it a policy to wear it on a lanyard, just in the event people know who they're talking to up here. I think it would just be a good idea for identification.
And with the card too, we have lanyards that you can wear it around your neck, or we also have a clip where it can be clipped onto your pocket or on your shirt or whatever. But that's the cards, and the system is available if you wish to use it.
okay.
Thank you.
I think it's a good idea.
Anything else for Jim?
Just contact your office and fill out the form then.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks for the info. All right, next, Brad.
Morning, Brad.
Brad gave his report on the radio yesterday morning, and I took time and listened to you and had some good information for us. Thank you.
No problem.
Apparently you had an entertaining float in the parade.
Yes.
We did. We did. Do you want everybody to ask tomorrow?
Jeez, I don't do well under pressure.
We participated in the lighted parade this year. Seemed like a really good crowd, real good turnout this year.
We increased our jail population by 1 that day, right?
We did, just
And
temporarily.
it's green.
Yeah, he was green, yeah.
The Grinch could not steal Christmas. All right, well, let's dive into our monthly report here. We'll start with the monthly balance sheet for October. The bank balance end of September was $9,852.68. We collected $16 in copy fees, $9,086.30 in sheriff's fees, and $250 in warrant fees, for a grand total of $9,352.30. And if we jump on over to the next page there, we'll go over our monthly stats here. Lee's got it pulled up on the board there so everybody can see as well. For the sheriff's office activity here, in October, we responded to 559 cases and calls. That puts us at 5,020 for the year, just adding up and kind of comparing to last year. Last year's total was 5,437 total, and we're already at 5,020 at the end of October, so we're well on pace to surpass our cases and calls from last year. Our accidents, we responded to 15 accidents in October. We served 66 warrants. 191 civil papers were served, and 3,443 transport miles were transported inmates around. And then if we want to jump on down to the jail activity there. For October, our average daily population was 73.77. Our high ADP was 81. Low was 66. We had 31 people on the Scram bracelet, 54 people on the twice daily PBTs, 34 people on the twice weekly UAs, 0 people on the sweat patch, and that for a total of 230 bookings for the month of October. If we jump on down a little bit more, fees collected from the jail. Excuse me. Collected $10,810 for out-of-county contracts, $4,680 for work release fees, 24/7 fees, $4,380, and $5,829 in scram fees were collected.
Mr. Chair, Brad, just looking at the difference between September and October on those out-of-county contracts, there's a pretty significant amount collected in October over September. What's any idea why
Just
so much?
You know, the inmate, the highs and the lows, and the sentencing versus unsentenced and sentenced.
Okay.
So, dollar amount, Brad, how many does that people represent?
On the out-of-county contract?
Yeah.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it's something that we can check with Tom and I can get.
I think also the fluctuations you see don't necessarily correspond to the number of inmates in the jail. Sometimes it's just the billing and when they pay and when we bill them. It's more on a collection cycle than
That 10,810 looks to be like a pretty normal. When you look at the other months, that's pretty comparable to the other months. September was really low.
In September, we did have a lot less out-of-county inmates. October was up to, I think, average or 6 or 7, something like on the average. So, yeah, like I say, peaks and valleys, kind of up and down when things get billed. I guess if we took and divided out that $10,810 by 75, that'd be the number that you're looking for.
Because I see these numbers the last part of the year have been a lot lower since November and December of 16 and January of 17.
Yeah.
That was a peak 3 months there.
In November, December, January, February, we were, that was the high when we were in the 90s. That kind of extended through January and February, even March a little bit. And then we started to slow down just a little bit and our numbers kind of came down, so. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Brad?
Our cook just recently, 1 month ago, had back surgery, so we haven't had a cook, and we've been contracting through Hy-Vee for our meals recently. And on Thanksgiving, I just want to throw out a thank you to Watertown Ford, Driscoll's, and the Foursquare Church from town here. They both provided the dinner meal and the supper meal for our inmates, so it saved the county some money there on the Hy-Vee bill. So I just wanted to publicly thank them for being able to help out there and do that.
Fantastic.
Very good.
How is our cook coming along?
She's coming along pretty good. She's got about another month of recovery and rehab here to do before she's able to come back to work. So she's looking at beginning of the year before she's able to come back to work. So
the present time we're contracted with Hy-Vee or?
Yep. For the time being, Hy-Vee has been contracting, doing the meals for us.
Brad, that was the Driscoll family, and who else did you say?
Watertown Ford, the Driscoll family, and then Foursquare Church.
If you see any of those folks, be sure and I extend a thank you to them. Very much appreciated.
That's something that they, Watertown Ford and the churches, they'll often, donate the meal on Thanksgiving and Christmas. So.
Mr. Chairman, this was a very outstanding effort on both of their parts. Do we have an official form of thank you that we could send them?
Well, we could write a letter of thank you. We could do that. The unofficial is I did call into What's Up on Thanksgiving morning, and I don't do that. I never do that. I did it simply because Watertown Ford is a sponsor of that program, and I thought that it would probably be fitting, and I just, announced or told the general public, whoever happens to listen to that program, of their generosity, you hate to single anybody out because there's so much generosity in the community, but I did in that one occasion simply because of the help that they do, and I did point out is Watertown Ford and Foursquare Church were the two entities that were involved in that project, and we very, very much appreciate their efforts.
Yes, we do.
And one last thing. Last week, it sounds like there was just some discussion on the number of deputies that our agency has. And I just wanted to bring back, I kind of called a few neighboring agencies that we compare ourselves to oftentimes and did some homework online with some the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the FBI. They have some numbers as well, so just wanted to kind of share those with you guys today to kind of show you where Cottington County is sitting with their deputies. Contacted Brookings. Their county is about 33,000 so population-wise, so they're a little bit more than us. We're at 28,000, 29,979 or something like that to be precise. They're at 14 full-time sworn law enforcement. That includes the sheriff, with 2 part-time deputies that work 30-plus hours a week. Called Brown County. They're at 38,000, so they're 10,000 more than us, population-wise. They're at 17 full-time employees for sworn, and just as a total for the whole department, they have 65 full-time employees and 20 part-time employees. That includes jail staff, record staff, and the whole works. Compared that to my office, we're sitting at 29 full-time staff, deputies, jail staff, and record staff, and 11 part-timers. So that's less than half compared to Brown County. So we definitely do a lot more with less people. According to the International Associations of Chiefs of Police, they kind of came up with a figure of 1.8 to 2.1 officers per 1,000 people in your population.
What was that, 2.8?
1.8
1.8
to 2.1 in that range for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. The FBI actually averaged out to be 3.4 for a lot of the larger agencies, 3.4 per 1,000 people in your population. And I figured Cottington County, I took out the city of Watertown, because the city of Watertown has their own police department. And that leaves us with about 6,000 people out in the county there. And I had figured ours is about 1.25 ratio for the deputies for not including the city there. So
1.25 per 1,000.
Per 1,000. We definitely do a lot more with less here in Cottington County.
Well, thank you for those figures, Brad, and then it's good to make to bring those up and address those from time to time.
Yep.
Well, just to refresh my memory, Sheriff, what's the number of deputies we have right now?
We have 9 deputies and myself. That's a total of 10.
Okay. So are all the deputies patrol deputies, or do you have deputies assigned to other areas, Brad?
Not all deputies are patrol deputies. I have one that's just a full-time civil process deputy, and you can see here we're 3,000 to 4,000 papers we serve. Not only with just papers, there's executions, there's arrest warrants. So there's a lot of work. That's a full-time position just for our civil process deputy. We have an investigator now, and then we have a sergeant. So that leaves us with 6 patrol deputies that are actually out.
And, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just another quick question on those ratio, those kind of standard ratios you were mentioning. Was that ratios of law enforcement per 1,000 of population, or sheriff's officers?
The IACP is 1.8 to 2.1, and the FBI 3.4. That's law enforcement population.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
And those numbers are in line with what I mentioned last week, the 2.1.
Probably the thing that people forget is that when we talk about 9 deputies, everybody thinks that those are 9 patrolling deputies. And there are so many other things that are involved there other than just patrolling. Serving papers and everything that goes with it.
Absolutely. Statutorily, there's a lot of things that the sheriff has to do compared to like a city police department. We have to do the transports for the county, for the mental health, and for inmates, running them back and forth. Courthouse and court security. Civil process is another one. Warrants. Our agency has to take and enter all the warrants and have the file for the warrants and serve the warrants. Plus, I'll put on top of all that calls for service, our calls that we have to respond to regularly, pistol permits. We have a jail that we have to manage as well.
So Brad, we're doing basically 24-hour coverage now around the clock with 6 road deputies?
Yeah, there's a few hours here and there that we don't have covered, but we do have a call deputy out that's available to take that. But those call hours have been reduced since I've come in, and we've kind of adjusted the schedule a little bit.
Both Brown County and Brookings County have 24-hour coverage?
Brown County, they do. Brookings, I do not think they do.
Okay.
And when you have to serve papers in Wallace, it's not like driving across town. That's an hour trip.
So, yeah, absolutely. Even South Shore, Wallace,
right.
Henry.
Yeah, there's a lot of miles.
If that, just an example, if your deputy's serving papers in Wallace and they have a domestic in South Shore or Kranzberg, that response time is going to take a little while.
That's right, in a helicopter.
Helicopter. Yeah.
Sorry, just kidding. Just,
All right.
The only thing that I would add here is that our deputies are traveling and on the road a lot. Get these doggone Ford Explorers in and get CO2.
There's actually a recall on that. They're actually doing some testing on that.
They are going to do a recall? I thought they were just going to fix them, not recall.
That's a recall. That's actually a recall item, and where it sounds like that's happening is from aftermarket installation of equipment. If you're drilling holes in the tailgate, adding lights or whatnot in the back end there, that is where that CO2 is actually coming in the back end. Up until last year, we haven't done any equipment on the way back there, and we have been monitoring that. And Watertown Ford has got us scheduled to.
Well, let's make sure they're fixed. I don't want one of your deputies running into me on his way to South Shore.
Brad, in the meantime, I don't know if you've talked with the city in terms of what we've done with our vehicles. We've put CO2 detectors in the vehicles, so maybe that's something to consider until that time. Okay.
Appreciate that.
So it's an aftermarket, both cases, the city and the county, or other counties, it's an aftermarket modification that's caused this problem.
Installing lights or something like that.
Drilling holes where they shouldn't be.
Use a smaller bit.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Brad.
Surface mount.
That's all I have to do.
All right, any questions for Brad? Anything? You had a soft announcement yesterday on the radio about a sheriff's program, and you'll bring, when you get more information on that, I'm sure you'll bring that to us, but it sounded interesting, and that's we appreciate you doing that. Always looking forward.
I guess I can talk briefly about that. I've been kind of toying with the idea of doing a sheriff's reserve program for quite some time here. I started my career with the reserves actually in the Millbank Police Department, so it kind of holds a soft spot in my heart for people to be able to that have a full-time job that maybe can't take that leap into law enforcement. Gives them an opportunity to come out and try the field a little bit and ride along with an officer. Once they got plenty of time, they can actually go out and work the street. So I've been kind of toying with that idea a little bit and looking at policy and procedures and how that's going to fit and where it would fit into our agency. So that's something I'm kind of looking forward to doing. Should be just a minimal expense to the county for some equipment, but that'd be free time and free work that they donate their time to come in and work as an officer. It's something that those many things that I was discussing here, with maybe transports, court security, just responding to calls, working warrants, pistol permits, helping out in the jail, all these different things that they'd be able to help out with. So.
I started my career in law enforcement with the Police Reserve Program, and I think that that's a great idea, Brad. It's a resource out there. There's people that want to be a part of that. that have a full-time job, like you said, that can dedicate some hours to doing that and come out and serve, give back to the community. I think it's a great idea, and I would encourage you to move forth with that.
I've had a lot of people that have, asked me about that, and I think it'd be a good step, so.
Good, thank you. Get some information together and a plan of action and bring to us, okay?
Thanks, Brad.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
Have a good week. Enjoy this nice weather before the roads get icy.
Oh, hey, Mr. Chair, can I ask Brad one more question?
Yes, shoot.
We're just about done with November, and the beards are looking like they're filling in.
Sure.
Can you give us an update on that?
See him a little scraggly here. Yeah, what we did is the deputies here in the sheriff's office and the jail staff, what we've been doing is the No Shave November. Everybody knows what No Shave November is for. It's for raising awareness for cancer. Mm-hmm. Well, this year it kind of hits home a little closer here. Everybody knows Terry Sutton, a public defender. His grandson, 2.5-year-old, he's a twin, Drake and Dixon Rounds. Drake, he's a 2.5-year-old. They were both born premature, and he's got liver cancer. So he's going through some really tough times. The whole family is going through some tough times. So as an office here, we decided we might as well put our beards to good use here and try and raise some funds for that family. So if you want, we do have a GoFundMe page set up on our website, our Facebook page. If you want to go there, you can go and donate to the GoFundMe page. Or you can go to the Great Western Bank. We have an account set up there as well, and actually you can donate there as well. Our plan is December 1st. There is a banquet,
fundraiser.
Yeah, a fundraiser for them Friday night at County Fair in their banquet hall, and we plan on presenting our check, all the funds that we have raised to the family at that time. Last time I checked, around $3,750, somewhere in there, dollars that we've raised so far. So our goal is $5,000. So we're on our way to our goal.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
Thanks, Brad.
Good question.
All right, let's go on then. Number 6 is action to approve 2018 Memorandum of Understanding between SDSU and Cottington County for funding support of the 4-H advisory position. That Memorandum of Understanding is in your packet. It looks like this. I did review it. It looks like it's the same as the one we had last year. Or did I miss something?
It's just an increase in the funding amount.
Yeah, and so that being said, I will
Make a
entertain a
motion
motion.
to approve that.
We have a
MOU.
motion by Commissioner Hatton.
Second.
Second by Waterman. Any discussion? And that dollar amount is on the second page, about 1, 2, 3, 4th column down.
$19,436, which will be used towards the salary of the 4-H youth advisor, who is Jody Lair.
And for the new commissioners, I don't know if you remember last year when we did this, but
Actually, they were here because we did this in January.
yes.
I do
They-
remember that.
They were here for this, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
we-
their first business transaction of the new year.
There you go.
We didn't know
Then
what
it's-
any of it meant, but we
It's
do know.
fresh in your mind then, right?
Yes.
But thank you just the same. Mr.
Chair. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We will skip that sign. Number 7, action to approve the purchase of a new firewall. You know, a firewall used to be between your feet and the engine in my vehicle, but that's changed now, hasn't it? And that request is in your packet as well, and it would look like this. It's from, is that right, Cindy?
Yes, the total cost is $4,750. The firewall itself is $1,485, and the 3-year license is $2,975, and about just under $300 to install it. This is protects the county's internet and email process.
I'll make a motion to approve that purchase.
We have a motion by Van Zyl, second by Gable. Any discussion?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So that includes all the software and firmware updates on the
Yes.
equipment?
Yep.
Okay.
Good question. Anything else?
Is there any equipment that's going to be considered surplus after that, or is it?
We do have an old firewall, but because of, it's not going to be able to keep up with the new software and technology, so it would probably just be
Okay.
destroyed.
All right.
Any others? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Number 8 on the agenda, action to approve claims for payment.
The claims we have today are the November salary claims. And you can see the total salary claims are $490,616.84. We are paying the SDRS special pay plan for one employee who was a retiree. In that instance, we pay any vacation or sick leave that he has available to be paid out gets paid to the SDRS special pay plan. There is no Social Security added to that, so it does save the county some funds by participating, and then it's up to the employee to either leave that in there or withdraw.
Move to approve those.
We have a motion by Hampton to approve. Is there a second? By Gable. And discussion. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 9, action to transfer Commissioner's contingency to the collection agency budget, $3,400. And just a little explanation there. That means that they're doing a good job.
That means they're collecting more money than we anticipated, correct, and we need to supplement the budget in order to pay them their percentage that they get for collecting for us.
So you have to spend some to get some, and that's the deal here. We have a motion by Hatton.
Second.
Second by Van Duzen. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 10, our maintenance people, no, this is Steve wants a new snow blade. Is that, I read the description on that, and it's a fancy one. It's got a V-plow on it and the whole 9 yards.
Well, how this really come about is we brought the four-wheeler, which belongs to the weed department, up here to the courthouse, and I turned around and told Milo, I says, it's getting pretty tough shape. It has, the frame has been cracked up, and so we welded on that, and I said, in time, we're going to probably get rid of it. And so in that process, I turned around and I says, you know, we could look at a snowplow for the Kubota, you know, to have up here for the courthouse for snow removal on the sidewalks and stuff. So that's how this has come about. I don't know if you want to add some things to it, Milo?
Okay, the way we're proposing to use this, the vehicle itself, the Kubota, will remain in storage out at the Ag Building. On the days that we need to use it, we'd have an employee, you know, from the courthouse go out and get it, you know, and bring it up here because we have no place to store it indoors. But that's kind of the gist of it here. It's a replacement for something that we're currently using and we're going to use the use of.
That Kubota, is that a lawn tractor as well?
Just what is heater in it, Steve?
Oh, I see,
Yes.
okay.
It's
It's like a Ranger type vehicle.
It's a UTV.
Is that a new one or a used one?
What's that?
Is that new or used?
That is new.
Okay.
That is a new one.
The snowplow.
Yeah, the snowplow.
That's
They're
real.
hard to come by right now, used as well. You might be able to find one. I've seen one a year ago I think on Craigslist. And so that used is like $2,500 to
Oh, I don't wanna
$3,000,
touch
what
it.
they've been wanting for them, so.
We have the Kubota, right?
We have the Kubota,
We
yes.
just need the blade.
Just need
Yep,
the blade. Is that a hydraulic system?
Yes, that is all electric
out the
hydraulic
last one you
system, has a
s-
remote that sits
Okay,
in the
the one in
cab,
your
it's a
packet?
handheld
All right,
remote.
this is the one I
So
have.
This will be more, this will be
Yeah.
more suitable than
Okay.
what we have.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, this will be more
What we
suitable.
were using in the past years.
Yep.
Milo, looking at that, that's a V-plow. Is that going to be too wide for the sidewalks?
It's 6 foot wide. It actually V's back. I mean, that's full width when it's
Okay.
out, but it V's back.
Okay.
So that's sort of narrow up, probably close to a foot.
All right, any other questions? Good questions. I'll entertain a motion.
What, how much is it?
$3,800.
Yes, we should.
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that
We
we
have a
purchase
motion
that.
by Commissioner Waterman. Is there a second by Gable? Any more discussion?
Is this, where would this item come
Whose
from?
budget is this coming from?
I'm going to have a lot left, and it's not a budgeted item, but I do have a lot left that will be out of my budget yet. There'll be probably, I estimate close to almost 40,000 unused in my budget this year, so but that's up to Milo if we want to split it.
So either the weed budget or the government buildings budget has sufficient funds.
Okay, that was
We
my
have
question.
sufficient funds also, you know, and I would anticipate this is going to be used amongst multiple locations.
Okay.
Excuse me, Steve, one quick question. What's the time frame of this being delivered from the time we purchase it?
It won't take that long. You just basically let him know, and he's already got plows on hand, so.
Where's it being purchased from?
S&S Industries, this gentleman has, he's in a strip building that is over by, you know where Howard Hopper lives?
Yes.
Just northwest
14th.
of the highway shop.
Okay.
So,
Good questions. Anything else?
Just a quick question. So is there separate action we need to take for the budget?
No.
Okay.
Once the bill comes, you'll approve the way it's split when
Okay.
you approve
All right.
claims,
Sure.
yeah.
3,800 installed and with everything you need?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go get her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Number 11, action to authorize the chair to sign a digital subscription renewal agreement with Thompson Returns of the County Public Library. And that folder is in here as well. It looks like
I
this.
believe the one you have in your folders is an old one. I've received an updated one after I got your
one-
packets ready.
The new one's on the screen.
Yeah.
So this, Mr. Chairman, if I can just chime in.
Yeah.
This one follows up our action last week to ask these guys to prepare a 5-year contract. Last one we tried was a 2-year. We save money in the law. We have a legal requirement to provide a public law library. We get the funds separate from taxpayer money. That's basically funded by court fees that get collected. And so this is nice because the public library, the local Watertown Regional Library, is good enough to host it on one of their computers. So that means we don't have to worry about the space in the courthouse for this. It's also open more hours for the public when the public does want to avail themselves of it. So this is a motion simply to follow up on last week's motion to authorize the chairman to
Sign the
sign the agreement.
What's the cost on that?
Actually, the first year is $285.85, and then there are gradual increases up to the 5th year, which is just over $20 an increase over 5
Yeah,
years.
these things go up, and so
It's better to take the 5-year plan than to
It's
pay
more economical
individually.
too, yeah,
All right.
to enter into
Just-
the 5-year.
And it does sound kind of, it's a digital law library, so this is a huge law library. You don't have to, it stays constantly updated. I ran this by the judges who are lawyers by trade, and they said this is an excellent deal. There's another county close by that pays for a similar kind of situation where it's in a public library, they pay over $500 a month for.
Is that a motion, Mr. Gable?
That's a motion, yeah.
That's a motion.
Second that.
We have a second by Hatton. Any more discussion?
I'd just like to remind the public that this is open to the public at the Watertown Library. They can go in anytime and utilize this resource.
So we'll split, and you want to check into the front desk, and they can guide you to which computer terminal the law library is located on.
And the fund that this comes out of is through the
It's the law
judicial.
library fund.
UJS.
It's made up of, it
Funds
consists of court fees.
specifically designated for law library, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Number 12, action to authorize chair to sign a lease agreement for office space for the nurse and the WIC offices, and that agreement was just handed out. It says draft on it.
No,
it
no,
doesn't.
no, it's this one. It's
No, it's the other one.
the typewriter one.
That's the typewriter one.
Yeah. Mr.
I
Chairman.
just can imagine Lee sitting there typing this out.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. We had we had this in front of us last week, but there was a correction that needed to be made.
Regarding the liability.
Regarding liability
certificate,
insurance.
yep.
So a lot of times when you rent property, the landlord wants to be named as a beneficiary on the liability insurance. We can't do that with our insurance, so they changed that paragraph. The rest of it's the same, been checked out by the state's attorney. And so what this is for the nurses' space in the rearrangement of moving offices around the courthouse in order to make space for a courtroom, an additional jury courtroom, and a remodeled clerk of court space. The nurse's office is one that needs to be moved out of the courthouse. So this is for rental space, and the amount is $1,740 a month. That includes snow removal. The floor space is 2,400 square feet, so that improves that. The Department of Health is on board. Additionally, we'll get a little bit of that money back because the Department of Health is going to rent some of that space back to us for the nutritionist position. So this is a motion to authorize you to sign this agreement as the chairman.
That's a motion by Gable. Is there a second?
Second that.
Second by Hatton. Discussion. I had a chance to read it. I had no questions other than it's a 3-year contract. We'll sign it today, but it will be effective January 1, or what day are we looking at as far as?
Yeah, the actual
taking over?
move-in date will be, if it's in the
April
lease term,
1st?
April 1st.
I missed that somewhere.
April 1st, 2018.
About mid, so it's,
Right underneath the legal
Yeah, so-
description.
yeah, right where it says lease term, if you look on the screen.
4/1 of 18.
Yeah, and so that's when we anticipate being able to move the nurse's office and to synchronize it with the construction cycle of what
Sure.
we have with the plan.
Has that
Okay.
building location been announced yet, Lee?
Yeah, I
So
can tell you,
it's
that's, the address is 104 First Avenue Northwest.
the old Krantz Insurance
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
I was by there last night, and it's going to be easily accessible
Yeah.
to people going in to see the nurses. So
Any other questions?
Nice.
Good questions. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Then the handout that we did get is number 13, and that's discussion possible action approve the memorandum of understanding to establish the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, or better known as GDAI Committee. And that is the draft. It says draft on it.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Gable?
Yeah, I've been talking about the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, and what this is basically a state initiative to get local communities to start coming up, making sure that we have alternatives for juvenile offenders, so that they don't stay juvenile offenders. It's kind of similar to what the gentleman were talking about at the beginning of our meeting, having some community resources put together and organized so that we can address some of these needs. Fortunately, we don't have a large juvenile population problem with our jail. Part of that's due to the juvenile justice reform that took place about 2 years ago now, where you really avoid incarcerating juveniles, but that means that at some level, except for the most severest offenders, the most severe offenders. So what that means is, because you're not going to be incarcerating some juveniles that are still offenders, you do need to have community resources to address that. And so that's what this is about. And just to walk through the memorandum, I think the key thing is right in that first paragraph. You can see all of the agencies that would be involved, so county, city, the Third Judicial Circuit, so the court basically, which is really whose initiative this was from the state level. And all the entities of the county, the state's attorney, sheriff, commissioners, police department, HSA, LSA, Lutheran Social Services, Boys and Girls Club. The school district is obviously a big one here. And then we also have Department of Corrections, Department of Social Services, the local representation is also participating in that. So this draft that you have in front of you, we discussed at the last JDAI meeting. Commissioner Van Duzen was with me at that meeting. And so we saw how it takes place. So this is kind of, you can see the goals there. The idea is to to work toward any kind of inappropriate incarceration of juveniles. And also then what this is really about is minimizing that rearrest, minimizing the reoffending. And so kind of the long-term purpose here, it's going to have a good impact on the jail, not so much maybe in reducing the juvenile population, but maybe preventing juvenile offenders from becoming adult offenders.
Did I hear a motion in that?
No, Mr. Chairman, as far as the motion goes, I think maybe this is still in draft. Maybe we could hold off on acting on it just yet.
All right.
I'm going to be talking to Judge Means, and I will go over to the City Council meeting on the 4th, the working session on the 4th, and just do the same thing. Since and you can see, if you look at the last page, you can see whose signatures.
Do you want to bring it back to the...
Yeah, we'll bring it back when we do approve.
You want to get it on the agenda at any particular time?
I'd say probably a couple of weeks. I'll put it on the agenda.
Couple weeks?
Yeah, probably a couple of weeks. But this is to make folks aware of what's going on, and take a look at the draft thing there. Right now, the plan is to have co-chairs. It would be a judge and a county commissioner. So right now, the way it's working, it's not totally formalized yet. It's Judge Means and myself. They're doing that, and then the CSOs, the probation officers, are really helping kind of with the administrative side of it and coordinating the meetings and things.
Thank you for doing that. Just an interesting side note here is I was out. We were having supper the other night with a family, and their child was not with them. I'll say their child. It was their child, which I thought was unusual because was passing up a pretty good meal, and teenagers they don't pass up any good meals. But they said that he was attending teen court, and he wasn't there because he was in teen court. He's one of the, I don't know whether they call them jurors or whatever.
Jurors.
And so it gave me an opportunity to share with the parents how important that is, and how we see the effect of that in our system here, simply because our juvenile counts are way, way down. And I attribute a lot of it to the things that are happening, whether it's Boys and Girls Club in school or 4-H or FFA or whatever, doesn't matter. But all those things help control those things. And so it made me feel good, and I think it made them feel good that we recognize their efforts of their child and what they're doing.
And that's really, as commissioners, we're just kind of helping coordinate it a little bit, but it's really the work of the state's attorney and the other law enforcement, the schools. The Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club. Yeah, by the way, Boys and Girls Club is the coordinator of the teen.
Very, very good. And people need to know that. People need to understand that. And I think just these teenagers taking the initiative to participate in that program, like the parents told me, they said it's been a very, very learning experience for their child. So that's good. All right, let's go on to number 14, action to approve personnel changes. I didn't see any.
I had a couple come in after I sent your packets out.
All right.
Both of these are anniversary step increases approved by the appropriate department head. The first one is Barb Martinson. She is a clerk in the Director of Equalization office. She'll go to step 11, $18.77 an hour. And Peggy Ramo is the secretary in the Veterans Service office. She will also go to step 11, $18.77 per hour.
Motion approved by Van Dusen, second by Charlie Waterman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Travel requests. We have one to bring back from last week, and we did not table it, so we do not have to bring it off the table. We just postponed it.
And then I also have another one that came in.
And I have neither one of them in front of me.
Nope. The first one is the welfare director to attend the NACO legislative conference. This is the one that you postponed from last week. And then she also has a request to attend the district welfare regional meeting on December 7th. And she'll use a county vehicle, so the cost will be gas, fuel, and a meal.
Is that in Pierre, sir?
It's in Sioux Falls.
Sioux Falls.
All right, so those are the requests that we have. Commissioner Hatton, you had a question in reference to overtime, I think, is what your question was.
Yes.
Are you satisfied? Are you all right? Or do you still have another question?
I still have questions. I don't know if Sarah could maybe come up and explain where her overtime is deriving from.
Sure, come on up, Sarah.
I'll give you everything after the meeting.
This is just an updated of what yesterday I had some more of the cost benefits, additional information. As far as the overtime request, there's two there, sorry. It's just, there is adequate coverage, but in the event something were to happen, I wanted to make sure that that was covered, because if you don't have it listed, you don't get paid. We do work the weekends. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday conference. I don't anticipate overtime, but in the event that there was a need, it would be covered.
I guess for me, you know, if we do approve this, the county's paying for the airfare, the lodging, the meals. I think it's unfortunate that, you know, I don't know if you could adjust when you're out there so you do not need to put in for overtime. I just feel this is a privilege to be able to go to something like this and to expect then to get paid overtime at a conference. It's not like your normal daily job.
I think a clarification, the overtime would not be during the conference. This is if you come back, because I'd be working Monday through Thursday, fly out, and be working through, again, the day I get back. So if I need to come back and handle things in the office, so it wouldn't take, if there is overtime, it would not take place while at the conference. But when you look at the week's schedule, you're looking where our schedule goes Sunday through Saturday, Sunday through Saturday. So I would be working the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'll do my best to not. But if I came back and there was something that I needed to handle in the office, that's when the overtime would occur in the office.
So just to repeat what you said, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, so the 5 to 7 hours on the form, that's not at the conference. That's just in case something has come up while you're gone and you got to deal with it.
Correct. When I return, if there's a need that something needs to be handled before the weekend or whatever, that's what the overtime is for.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Hatton?
Somewhat, yes. Also, I guess, you talk about these benefits. How many grants have we actually applied for, and exactly what is the dollar amount that we have received back as a county?
Okay, so there's different types of grants, and there's technical assistance is a type of grant that we've had to apply for. And you don't actually receive the dollars, but this is what it would have cost you had you paid for it. The biggest one definitely, which is the sequential intercept mapping, it would have cost the county $23,000, and we needed that to be done in order to apply for the Justice Mental Health Collaboration Grant. So these are grants that it's really hard to put a dollar on, in the sense of I can't tell you, like, if as far as the travel with the White House, the stepping up, that was a grant we had to apply for to receive, and then we were rewarded those trips. For us to have even actually had those type of speakers come to us and even have that would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I can't put a monetary on that. Also, in addition, not to just focus on the fact that this in addition to the benefits from the stepping up and being at the table, which is really important that we're at that table, we also, the Health Steering Committee part that I'm on, we're provided updated information of proposed federal legislation that can impact the county. That's how we knew about the energy assistance programs. So we're always aware of that, but also there's a lot of information that I learned. And just yesterday I had an individual that I had helped back this fall who had a denial. She had her Social Security came to her. She didn't know where else to go. She'd gone to everybody for help. She said, I'm just coming here. Everybody referred you here. She got a letter from Social Security office that she received overpayment for her disability, that she'd have to pay back $16,000. Now, if you're aware, when you're on Social Security, you already have a limited income. But because of the training and the information I received at NACO, I could look at that Social Security letter and I said, something's not right here. Let's take a look at this. She called the Social Security office and they weren't going to help her with an appeal. They said, just submit so that you get this deducted from your account. So not only would she'd have to pay $16,000 back, she would also have less income come every month because she wouldn't be able to work. What I learned at NACO was what's called substantial gainful activity, which they hadn't considered and made a mistake. I helped her file an appeal. She dropped her letter off yesterday. That overpayment was, Social Security says we made a mistake. She did not have to make that overpayment. That made the world of difference to her.
Wonderful.
That's stuff I learned at NACO. It isn't just the stepping up, it's all this other information.
That's the only place you can learn this information. They don't have teleconference sort of things that you can get this information from.
This is where I happen to learn that. I do participate in webinars, as many as I can as well. It's a combination. When we're at NACO, we have the top head people out there. We have HHS, the head person that's out there. And it also actually helps me if I have a question, this is how I contact people that can help me work through that.
So it's a networking as well.
Absolutely, yes.
You learn more between meetings than you do at the meeting sometime. All right, the second request is this one here, and that's the one that's in Sioux Falls, is that correct? And that's
Do we want to do one at a time?
Should we do one at a time?
Yes.
This is what, Mr. Chairman,
This one
Sarah
is
gave
still
us
part
to-
of the NACO.
Yeah.
So this is part of it.
This is her request for the regional training.
All right,
By the way,
let's
this-
do the first one. Let's do the,
Just for the record, Mr. Chair, I would like to make a statement that I was contacted by County Commissioner from Minnehaha County, who is also part of this Stepping Up initiative on Sarah's behalf, and said that Sarah's a very important person to serve on that subcommittee, and that her input is very valuable, and it's highly recommended that she attend this conference.
all right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is this on the regional or the NACO
On
legislation?
the NACO.
NACO?
I'll make the
Okay.
motion to approve.
We have a motion by Van Duzen and a second by Gable. Any more discussion? Had good discussion here.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Charlie?
And this is probably not a real good analogy, but it's the best this poor old boy can come up with. So what we're doing here is we're spending money for a travel on the possibility of getting somebody elected to a subcommittee.
No, she's already on the subcommittee.
You're already on the subcommittee?
She sits on the subcommittee.
Then this is to attend that subcommittee? So we're putting out the $3,000, but we don't know for sure what we're getting back. Is that correct?
Well, I think the fact that she's attending these conferences representing our county on a national level, and she's able to network with representatives from across the country and professionals that deal with the Stepping Up initiative, that's invaluable to our county. And she serves as a liaison for that. I think it's important that she attend this conference.
Well, we have so many, and the reason I'm thinking about this is we have a lot of alternatives that are to keep the people out of jail, and we've just had a deal of maybe more of them this morning with another group. How much groups do we possibly need? Is this an ongoing, ever-building process to keep people out of jail?
Can I answer that question too a little bit?
Go ahead.
In addition, a lot of the original intent was with the Health Steering Committee, and we actually put together, we decide what policies are important as throughout the United States, and then NACO works on our behalf to lobby for those things. So we actually have a change and influence on the federal government, what's supported, what's not, and that's what directly impacts Cottington County. If the federal government would not have supported the Energy Assistance Program, that would have directly affected the county budget. So a lot of the work that I do, in addition to the Stepping Up, affects federal legislation. We come together, we have to come together as 50 states and say, what are our 5 most important policies in that committee, and then that's what NACO moves forward for us.
But there is one thing that we should all not forget, and whether we get dollars from the state, especially from the federal government, it's dollars that are borrowed against our grandchildren.
Okay, any other discussion? Go ahead, Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hannon.
I guess I'd just like to hear from Troy. On the city side, I've had a conversation, when they send personnel about the overtime, typically, if there's going to be overtime accrued, it's generally not approved.
Well, generally, it depends on the situation, Commissioner Hanton. Whenever there is a training and travel request that is completed, of course, the employee, if there's going to be anticipated overtime, there has to be a justification for that, because that's all a budgeted item, of course. We're stewards of the tax dollars, and we have to be able to account for every penny that's spent. So just to throw it onto a training request, although I support what you're doing and I appreciate your work on the NACO subcommittee, the steering committee, I do. I want you to know that. But we also have to, when we look at that training request, we have to say, okay, just so it doesn't come back, here's a $200 overtime item on that training request. Okay, why? Why was there overtime? Is it something that we could have you could have maybe taken Monday off that week and let your assistant take care of the office work that week so that you didn't incur overtime? So those are some things that we just need to look at, and we need to be able to articulate that. That's, I think, what the concern is.
And maybe my mistake was that I wrote it as within the training. I just assumed it had to be within the week, and then if it's not listed and something happens, then it would get denied. So it's more of a precautionary, making sure that you're aware of it. I don't anticipate it, but in the fact that it is, or if I remember sitting on an airplane one time for 3 hours and I worked on stuff, I thought, I'm sitting here grounded.
Sure, no, and I'm sure that you understand that if we approve that training request, it's kind of a green light to incur that overtime. And so we need to make sure that we have justification for that if it leads into that. So, and I know that that's in your budget, but that was the question before we move on.
Good discussion. Anything else?
So is
Mr.
there a
Gable.
way we can approve this without having that overtime costs on there?
We'd have to alter the request.
Sir,
Well,
is
you
that,
just approve it without overtime.
Mr. Chair, sir, is that something that you would be willing to do as far as that week, is just kind of adjust your hours so that we don't incur overtime?
I can, but in the past I've gotten in trouble if I'm not at my office. So
Sure.
I can absolutely, and as long as I don't get in trouble if
The
there's
only
hours.
issue with that is potentially you don't run into overtime and then you're short hours for that week.
Well, if I could say, can I make two comments, Mr. Chairman? On the overtime, it seems to me that this is just a precautionary thing, just anticipating that there may be some office hours required because something might come up. We're talking about the welfare director's office here. I think I think now that you have an assistant, if this is something the assistant can handle, great. Then you can take that time off. You don't need to do it yourself. But if it's not, I would rather plan for it and not have and say that this is something we understood might happen. Then going back to Commissioner Waterman's question about I think it was a cost benefit question. Just to kind of repeat what Sarah said, the big picture is that we get a voice in things that affect counties at the federal level. That's what NACO is for. It's similar to just like the South Dakota County Commissioners Association. We get a voice. If we participate in that, we get a voice in the legislature on state level issues that affect counties. So this is an opportunity for us to do that, to affect things that in the long run make things better, hopefully for our citizens in Cottington County. And I realize there's different views on particular issues that might come up, like you mentioned. That means we have to be in constant dialogue with Sarah and it's an opportunity for us, since we have a welfare director that sits on a subcommittee, that we can be in dialogue with her about the specific issues that are going to come up. And then on the cost benefit part of it, I think that's just kind of a side benefit, really, when you think about it. So what's nice about it is it's quantifiable. And so, all of these things here I think most of them were an application, and you have the examples in this letter here was part of the application for the last one, the sequential intercept mapping, where you had the General Counsel of the Governor supporting that grant request, as well as Chief Justice Gilbertson supporting that request. So this is stuff that that's clearly, it's a quantifiable benefit, but it's kind of a side, it's a little bit of a side issue to what's really going on and really why we do this. But if we need to cost benefit, there you go.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Gable. We have a motion on the floor to approve the request as originally was submitted. Is there any more discussion? Any more discussion? Anyone have anything else? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign.
No.
We have 4 ayes, 1 no. Motion carries. Let's go on to the second request then, and that's for the District Welfare Regional Meeting, which is in Sioux Falls, that Sarah submitted, and you do not have a copy of that.
No.
I do have a copy of it. It has the agenda on it. I'll pass this around.
Just came in.
Look at that quickly.
I believe this regional training was referred to in the county comment, if you've had a chance to read it for this month. I just got it delivered to me. The welfare director who writes we all have to write a little newsletter for each county comment, and he references this regional training in there.
It's a one-day.
Yeah, they're looking at changing the 2013, that's what makes it important to attend.
They're looking at changing, I'm sorry.
Changing laws in 2018.
Oh, okay.
Statute or this office, my office operating.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just looking at the agenda, this looks pretty important. You're talking about the poor relief laws, and so I'd be very interested to see what comes out of those recommendations. So.
I'll entertain a motion if you've all had a chance to look at it. We have a motion by Gable, a second by Van Dusen. Any more discussion? Everybody get a chance to look at her request?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sarah, can you give us a report on that when you get back from that conference, on what some of the discussion was on those? I'd be curious to know.
There's a draft right now.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to review it, but the first little bit was very alarming.
Yeah, I'd be curious to look at that.
It'd be good to see.
We'd appreciate it if you'd do that. All right. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Sarah. Let's go on then to number 16. Any old business for the good of the cause here this morning? Any mature business?
Just,
yes.
Mr. Chairman, just a reminder for people's calendars. So the next County and County Justice Advisory Committee meeting, that's not until December 18th, which is a Monday night. So just a reminder for people's calendars.
All right. Anything else? New business? Any new business? Any new business? Seeing none, let's go on to the open. Anything for the open? I'll start out. I have one thing. I know that we had mentioned last week at our meeting that the Jordan Mack Calf Show was going on out at the Extension Center, and it. I did spend part of the weekend in and out of there. It went well. I don't know what happened, but I guess maybe the idea that we were on top of it, and then they start out parking those trailers correctly, and then they just follow suit. And so I think the Lord blessed us with some very nice weather. That helped. And let's just hope that I talked to the others, and I heard no complaints from anyone, so I think that was good. So that just proves the point. If you're on top of it and let people know that you're concerned about some issues, that things might happen without really any major influence.
Didn't they have some assistance with parking too?
No, not really, other than the fact, well, yes, they did. They had a lot of assistance because there was a lot of people watching what was going on, and we got some panels set up by some of the local farmers and ranchers here that really helped direct traffic and get those fire lanes opened up, and a lane to the hockey situation. We have a kind of a sticky situation coming up during the farm show on Saturday, which is really the big day for the farm shows in the past, and there's also a hockey tournament going on that day, so we'll have a challenge that day too. But We'll just figure it out. We always have. Anything else for the open?
I have several events that there could possibly be a quorum of commissioners at. One being tomorrow is our Sioux Valley Commissioner meeting at noon out at the Extension. Also on Saturday evening is the Snowball Gala for the Beacon Center at the Event Center at 5 o'clock.
What's that? The what?
Beacon Center
It's the Snowball Gala.
The Snowball, I forgot the name
Snowball
of it.
Gala.
Delightful.
It's a fundraiser for the Beacon Center.
I think it's the first one like that.
Yep, the first one. Lee, tomorrow, or today, we have a Park and Rec meeting. Is at 5 or 5:30?
That's right, yeah. Yeah, 5:30.
5:30, and that is out at the zoo. Okay.
So that's one that's where they're going to discuss that. Last week we approved the auditorium, the lease with the city for those two offices in the auditorium for the Veterans Assistance Office and the Welfare Office, pending their approval. So if they approve that agreement, which we've been working together on, which I don't anticipate any issues, then
I don't foresee any issues there, do you?
Yeah. No, I don't. And so then we already authorized you to sign that last week's meeting. So.
As the host county for the meeting tomorrow, if you could be there by 11:30, that would be good. The meeting starts at noon, but everybody will start coming in anytime between 11:15 and 11:30.
Okay. All right.
And
Anything
everything's
else?
on track for that. Food's ordered, all the goodies, so it should be good.
Yeah, thanks for taking the lead on
Not a
that.
problem. I don't have anything else, I guess.
Anyone else have anything? Seeing none, we do have a request for an executive session by Terry. That would be number 4, preparing contract negotiations or negotiating with employees or employee representatives. So, saying that, I'll take an
I have one more thing, I guess, that I should have mentioned for the open, that a quorum could be Friday at First District for the pre-disaster mitigation plan at 1:30. And I'll make a motion to go into exec.
Second.
Motion by Hatton, second by Van Duzen.
Round table.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.